say truth is timeless, but let's be real. Some truths are so powerful, so disruptive, they don't just fade, they get buried. And nobody understood that better than Socrates. You've heard of him, the father of Western philosophy, the guy calmly sipping poison like some peaceful old sage. That's the image we've been sold. But what if I told you that the truth behind who he was, what he believed, especially about women, has been scrubbed clean from history? Ask yourself, why is Socrates always portrayed like a harmless old man with a beard? Why don't they tell you he believed women weren't just forces of beauty, but forces of chaos? Why do they teach his philosophy, but leave out his warnings? Because here's the reality. Socrates wasn't some soft, gentle thinker. He was ruthless, obsessed with truth, willing to die for it. And some of the truths he uncovered, especially about the nature of men and women, were too uncomfortable to survive. Socrates saw something in women that men today are desperate to understand, but can't, because we've replaced truth with politeness, clarity with confusion, and strength with submission. And men are paying the price. This isn't about blaming women. This isn't about hate. This is about seeing clearly through the fog of modern conditioning. What if the rules you've been taught, the ones women say they want you to follow, are the exact ones making you invisible? What if Socrates left behind a warning so clear, so true, that it terrified generations into hiding it? If you're a man who's tired of being lied to, if you're ready to wake up, this is your red pill. Let's get into it. Here's what most people don't know. Socrates was married, and not to just any woman, but to Xanthippe. Yeah, that name you've maybe heard used to describe a nagging or difficult woman. That's her. And that reputation, it wasn't made up. According to ancient sources, she was loud, confrontational, emotionally intense, even borderline abusive. There's a story where she dumped a whole pot of water over Socrates' head in public. And what did Socrates do? He didn't yell. He didn't retaliate. He laughed. Now here's where most men miss the point. That laugh wasn't weakness. It wasn't indifference. It was insight. Socrates wasn't reacting. He was watching, studying, learning. He understood something we've forgotten. To understand the world, you must first understand woman. Not the filtered Instagram version, not the fantasy, the real thing, in all her contradictions and complexity. And what did Socrates discover? That a woman's words often betray her instincts, that her emotions can clash with her actions, that her desire for goodness doesn't always align with what she's drawn to. Socrates didn't try to change her. He didn't try to fix her. He didn't complain. He observed. Because trying to fix a woman to make her easier is how you lose your soul. Instead, he chose detachment, not avoidance, awareness. From her chaos, he drew something powerful, wisdom. His most famous quote about marriage wasn't just clever, it was a coded truth. By all means, marry. If you get a good wife, you'll be happy. If you get a bad one, you'll become a philosopher. That wasn't just a joke. That was a warning in disguise. Socrates wasn't really talking about marriage. He was talking about transformation. A woman, in all her emotional depth, intensity, and duality, will test you, tear you open, shake your foundation. And what's left after the dust settles, that's who you really are. You either break and become bitter, or you endure and become wise. That's the real lesson, the unspoken one. Socrates didn't explain himself. He didn't beg. He didn't fight for comfort. He chose power over peace, truth over validation. That's why they want you to think of him as just an old man with a quirky beard, not a man who faced down feminine chaos and came out clear-eyed and grounded. Because here's the thing, modern culture pushes a myth, not just equality of value, but sameness, that men and women are essentially the same, that we think the same, love the same, want the same, that the more you act like her, emotionally open, soft, agreeable, the more she'll love you. And yet, men who follow that advice get ghosted. They get divorced. They get demoted from partner to emotional support pet. Socrates would have laughed, not out of cruelty, but because he saw through it. Human beings deceive themselves first, then others. You want to know what's really hidden? What's really taboo to say? There's an ancient force between man and woman, polarity. It's not hate, it's not inequality, it's magnetism. And when a man gives up his edge to win her approval, that polarity collapses. Women aren't turned off by kindness. They're turned off when kindness is coded in neediness, when it's a mask for fear, when it's used as a trade, I'm nice, so love me back. Socrates knew real virtue, arete, was rooted in living your nature. For a man, that nature doesn't whisper, it roars. You weren't born to be molded by her preferences. You were born to become what she can't mold, what she feels in her body but can't explain. She might say she wants softness, vulnerability, access to every part of you. But if you give it all too quickly, she pulls away. Not because she's cruel, but because her instincts are brutal. Nature wired her to test for strength, for presence, for a man who leads, not one who pleads. Socrates understood that eros, desire, wasn't about logic. It was a divine madness, a kind of beautiful chaos that revealed the core of a person. And what's more revealing than a man who abandons himself just to be accepted? Masculine and feminine energy aren't interchangeable. One builds, one flows, one penetrates, one receives. You can't swap them out like puzzle pieces. But the modern man, he's been taught to flip the polarity, to become agreeable, passive, emotionally dependent, and then wonder why she loses interest. This is why being a good guy isn't enough. Not if your goodness costs you your backbone. Socrates said, "Know thyself." But how many men today know themselves? Most just know how to adjust, to shrink, to smooth over tension and make themselves more palatable. And in doing so, they become invisible. You can't lead a woman when you're orbiting her. You can't captivate her if you're constantly asking for permission to exist. The men who live in her mind, long after the relationship ends, are the ones who stand for something deeper than her validation, who carry mystery, conviction, depth. They don't bend for comfort, they create tension. Not to manipulate, but because that's where desire lives. You've been told to be safe, to earn her trust. But safety without challenge, that creates boredom, and boredom is the death of desire. That's the truth Socrates saw. And that's the truth most modern men are terrified to hear. This is polarity, the uncomfortable, undeniable truth that lives in our biology. A truth that ancient thinkers like Socrates hinted at, even if they wrapped it in riddles, because they knew not everyone was ready to hear it. Not all men get this. But the few who do, they stop chasing. They stop explaining themselves. They stop trying to earn what can never be earned through compliance. Instead, they become something different, something unforgettable. Here's a brutal reality. Most men still believe women's words more than their actions. They listen to what she says she wants. The nice guy, the good listener, the emotionally available man, and they try to become that. They open up. They become more sensitive, more accommodating. They put her first, text her constantly, make her the center of their world. And what do they get? Ignored, ghosted, or turned into an emotional safety net while she dreams about someone else. Why? Because modern men have forgotten what Socrates never did. Human beings don't just lie to each other, they lie to themselves. Not always on purpose, but because they don't understand what they're truly drawn to. A woman might genuinely believe she wants a man who shares everything, who makes her feel emotionally safe, who's always available. But what she responds to, what she's biologically wired to desire, is tension, polarity, mystery, presence. A man she can't predict, can't fully decode. Because when she can, the attraction fades. This is what Socrates meant when he said, "Truth is found in contradictions." When a woman's words say one thing, but her energy says another. A wise man doesn't get bitter. He doesn't spiral. He doesn't rage online about female nature. He observes. He watches what she does, how she reacts, where her eyes linger, when she leans in and when she checks out. Ask yourself this: who are the men she fantasizes about? Not the ones who orbit her. Not the ones who say all the right things and fold at the first test. She remembers the man with a spine beneath his softness. The one with a mission bigger than her. The man who doesn't flinch when she throws emotional chaos his way. Not because he's cruel, but because he's centered. And trust this, she will test you. Every eye roll, every "you've changed," every moment of silence after an emotional outburst, that's not an attack. That's a question. Can you hold your ground, or will you collapse into me? Most men collapse. They start explaining, apologizing, groveling for peace, and they think they're being emotionally mature, when in reality, they're bleeding attraction from every word. Because every unnecessary apology, every attempt to soothe something that didn't need soothing, it chips away at how she sees you. Not because she wants you to be a tyrant, but because she wants to feel your core. And your core doesn't speak in words. It shows up in your presence. Socrates never wrote down a single word, not one. Because for him, truth wasn't something to be said, it was something to be lived, embodied. It was in how you show up when she's cold, when she withdraws, when she tests you, when the world is screaming for you to apologize for being a man, and you stay centered anyway. The real test of your love isn't how much you give. It's how little you abandon yourself in the process. That's the paradox no one talks about. The more you try to prove your worth to her, the less she feels it. The more you speak just to win her over, the more noise you create. What cuts through that noise? Stillness. Not emptiness, not disinterest, stillness. The calm force of a man who knows himself, who isn't trying to win her, who already won the moment he chose to stand firm in his truth. And here's the part that hurts. Women can sense when you've lost yourself. Not just consciously, they feel it in your tone, your eyes, your posture, your smile. You can hit the gym, grow the beard, wear the designer jacket. You can say all the right things. But if your soul is hollow, If your identity has been traded for the fantasy of being chosen, she knows. Because women are biologically tuned to feel incongruence. If your words don't match your energy, if your kindness is just a cover for insecurity, if your confidence hides a deep craving to be validated, she'll feel it and she'll pull away. Maybe slowly, maybe all at once, but she'll leave. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you weren't real. You became a mirror, not a man, a reflection of what she wanted, instead of the force she was wired to follow. And here's the tragedy. Modern men are told to do more, try harder, be better. But Socrates would say the opposite. He'd say, stop performing, start thinking. Because if you're performing for her, then you're not thinking for you. You've stopped being her counterpart and started being her audience. And she doesn't want a fan. She wants a man. A man who stands even if it creates tension. A man who moves with purpose, not permission. A man who can listen without shrinking, love without losing himself, lead without explaining. That's what she actually wants, even if she doesn't know how to say it. Because here's the truth. No one tells you. A woman doesn't want to complete you. She wants to meet you. Meet you at your edge. Meet you in the fire. Meet you where your vision cuts through the noise of the world, where you refuse to flinch. But if there's no core, no fire inside, nothing grounded and real for her to feel, then she has nothing to meet, nothing to surrender to, nothing to trust. And that's the problem. Most men have been shamed out of that fire, out of that core. They've been told their masculinity is dangerous, that their leadership is toxic, that their presence is oppressive, so they neutralize themselves. They soften. They step back. And then they wonder why no one respects them, why women lose interest, why they feel invisible. It's not because you're too much. It's because you're not being enough of yourself. And the women who are worth your time, they don't want you to betray yourself to keep them. They want to see if you'll stay true to who you are even when they push you. They'll test you. They'll provoke you. They'll throw you off balance just to see, will you fold or will you stand? And the second you fold, the second you compromise who you are to keep her, the desire dies. Not because you weren't enough, but because you stopped being you. A man in his truth is dangerous, not because he hurts anyone, but because he cannot be moved. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't perform. He doesn't explain who he is to be accepted. He stands. And that standing, that stillness, that grounded presence speaks louder than every man out here shouting into the void, trying to be noticed. So if you've ever wondered, why did she lose interest? Ask the harder question, where did I lose myself? Because until you reclaim you, everything you do will feel like performance. Your strength will feel like strategy. Your love will feel like leverage. But when you come back to truth, not the truth someone handed you, but the truth you earned, everything changes. You stop chasing women. You stop chasing approval. You stop chasing anything. You become the gravity, the experience, the storm, and the stillness all at once. And when you stand in that place, something crazy happens. She feels it in her bones, in her instincts. She doesn't have to understand it. She just knows. Because now, you're not the kind of man who needs to be chosen. You are the choice. The difference between the man she keeps and the man she forgets, it's not charm. It's not money. It's not even looks. It's centeredness. But most men today, they're performing, hollowed out, desperate to be picked, doing more, saying more, trying harder. And they don't get it. But she does. She smells it. Not your cologne, not your gym sweat, but the absence of soul behind your eyes. That quiet despair of a man who gave up his core to become acceptable. You can dress it up. You can call it love. You can call it emotional availability. But if underneath it, you've lost your spine, she knows. Women are wired to detect inauthenticity. If what you say doesn't match what you believe, if your smile is hiding neediness, if your generosity is just disguised dependence, she won't argue. She won't debate. She'll just drift. And the worst part? You won't know why. Because you did everything right. You were nice, you listened, you texted good morning, you bought flowers, you opened up. And it still wasn't enough. Because it's never enough when it's not you. And modern men, we've been taught to perform instead of embody, to prove instead of become. But Socrates would say, know yourself, think for yourself, be yourself. If you're trying to become what she wants, you're no longer you. You're her reflection, her creation, her project, and she doesn't want to raise you. She wants to meet you. A real man doesn't orbit her life. He builds his own and invites her to join, not control. That doesn't mean you shut her out. That doesn't mean you dominate or manipulate. It means you lead from a place of truth, from a mission so strong that her presence becomes a complement, not a completion. Because here's what no one tells you. A woman doesn't want to complete a man. She wants to respect him. Respect comes from one place. A man rooted in something deeper than her opinion of him. That edge, that unshakable spine, that's what creates desire. Not manipulation, not mystery games. Presence. The man she dreams of when she's in another relationship, the man she can't forget, isn't the most romantic, isn't the richest. It's the man who didn't need her to be whole. The man who walked away when the connection no longer aligned with his truth. Not out of coldness, out of integrity. That's the man who lives in her head years later. Because that man, the sovereign man, is rare. And we're not talking about being a jerk. We're not talking about arrogance or emotional unavailability. We're talking about self-possession. A man who knows who he is, who doesn't abandon his principles to gain affection, who can love deeply without losing his edge. If she doesn't respect you, it doesn't matter how much she says she loves you. It doesn't matter how much you give, how hard you try, how often you check in or buy gifts or hold space. Because without respect, the relationship is dead. Maybe not right away, but slowly, quietly, until one day she looks at you and feels nothing. That's what Socrates understood, that a man's true test isn't in how deeply he feels. It's in how fiercely he refuses to betray his core in the name of love. So if you've been ghosted, friend-zoned, slowly pushed out of her life, don't waste time blaming her. Ask yourself, was I leading or was I orbiting? Did I speak truth or did I just tell her what I thought she wanted to hear? Did I grow softer, weaker, more agreeable, just to avoid conflict? Because if you did, her exit wasn't betrayal. It was feedback. The feminine tests because it must. It forgets because it needs to feel more. And the man who gives everything too soon, too easily, becomes a man with nothing left to reveal. But here's the good news, the twist that changes everything. You can become the man she never forgets. The man whose presence lingers long after the relationship ends. The man she dreams about in silence. The man who left a mark on her psyche that no amount of new affection can erase. How? By detaching from outcome. By building a life rooted in your truth. By refusing to bend, even when love is on the line. You don't just become someone who gets women. You become someone who gets himself. And when your identity, your mission, your energy flows from that place, you pull people in, not by trying, but by being. This isn't about becoming a pickup artist. It's not about being a cold alpha caricature. It's about being whole, unapologetically, radically. Because once you live from truth, you don't chase women anymore. You attract respect. That's the difference. And yes, it's terrifying. Because it means you might lose people. You might not be liked. You might be misunderstood. But you'll never lose yourself again. That's the power of truth. That's what Socrates tried to teach. Not with lectures, with life. You've heard a lot in this video. Maybe some of it stung. Maybe some of it confirmed a quiet suspicion you've had for years. Maybe it woke something up. Something raw. Something real. That's your fire. The fire of truth. The fire they've tried to tame in you since you were a boy. Socrates warned us long ago, the unexamined life is not worth living. But most men are living a script, performing, pleasing, pretending, and they wonder why they're exhausted, why nothing feels right, why love never lasts. But now you know. It's not your job to be what she wants. It's your job to become who you are, fully, dangerously, unapologetically. The world will call it arrogance. Some women will call it insensitivity. But the few, the very few, who recognize real masculinity, they'll feel it in their soul. And even if no one else sees it, you will. Because you'll feel the return of your spine, the quiet strength of not needing to be chosen. And from that place, you don't chase. You pull reality toward you. Because now you understand. What you tolerate becomes your prison. What you embody becomes your freedom. If this message hit you in the chest, share it. Don't keep it to yourself. Like the video. Send it to a brother who's lost himself. And if you believe in this mission, in waking men up through truth, philosophy, and real power, support the channel using the link in the description. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs men who remember who they are. And maybe, just maybe, today, that man is you.